Hey everybody, so here's the painting section of the tools here. As you can see, there's definitely a full table worth of stuff, and not all of it is an absolute requirement, certainly. This is just a collection of everything that I've put together here just to show you what can be useful, and like it says in the directions, the only thing you really need are some paints, some brushes, and that's really about it. So I'll go over all this other stuff as well. And we'll start with the actual required paints. Out of the list of 27, I do in fact have 5 on hand, so I definitely have a few more to go out and buy, so I've started making a list there of everything I'll need. As far as the brushes go, I think I'm going to be able to get away with using these really simple ones. You certainly don't have to get really expensive brushes for this. One thing to keep in mind is if you're working with enamels, these will eat natural hair brushes, so you want to get synthetic or nylon brushes. Whereas if you're working for oils, you don't want to use nylon, you want the natural hair because of the oils that are in natural hairs. And acrylics, I think those go pretty good either way, but probably natural hair is good with those. And the packages, when you get them, should say what they are. In addition to the paints, of course, you'll need an appropriate thinner. In this case, I'm working with enamels, so I've got some Testors enamel thinner and a jar here to keep it all in. Let me show this off real quick here, without moving the camera around too much, I hope. If you haven't seen this trick before, it's just a simple tin can stuck in the bottom with a bunch of nail holes in top. So when you go and you brush your brush across the surface, all the holes capture all the paint, it sinks to the bottom, and you wind up with an infinitely clean jar of thinner. I've had this sitting around for 8 months now. There's definitely some goop in the bottom, and if you shake this up, it'll certainly turn sludgy black. But after a day or two, any paint clouds that are in there, they're gone. So that's definitely a good little trick. All you need is one sealable jar and a can that will fit inside it. Over here with paint palettes, you can definitely go out and spend $1 or $2 on each like this, but all you really need is the top of any kind of plastic lid. Will certainly do. And those are free when you buy your food, so that's definitely a better deal than paying for this stuff. Over here, Q-tips, popsicle sticks, toothpicks. These are all useful things for applying paint and getting rid of accidents. That's definitely a major thing, along with the toilet paper there, maybe some paper towels on hand, and certainly some cloth rags that you can brush your paints off on. I got the sponge here too, that can be useful as well for cleaning your brushes off. Just figured I'd throw it in there because it's a fairly obvious one. Masking tape, definitely go with the blue tape, low tack, you won't leave any gunk behind. And over here I've got some really fine masking tape. These greenish tan ones here are from a company called Pactra. They're about $6.50 each. These two spools are about 1/4 used, and then the small one is about 3/4 used. So you see that you don't get too much for that $6.50. I went out to an art store and I found this artist drafting tape. It's by a company called Headline. It comes in 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2 inch, and the price on these, $3.40. This one is $2.40, $2.30. Then I think this one here was about $3.50. So this is the 1/4 inch, and here is the Pactra 1/4 inch. Now I said the Pactra has been about 1/4 used, so actually it goes to about the outside line here from when it was new. And as you can see on the inside, you get a whole ton more, if not nearly twice as much, for half the price. So definitely check out your local art stores when you are looking for supplies, because the model shops are definitely into proprietary sort of stuff, and you aren't necessarily going to get the best deals. The same thing goes for your brushes, but I'd probably suggest going to the model shop for some thinner. You can go to a hardware store and get some thinner, but make sure you test the thinner with your paint before you do anything else. The wrong kind of thinner will turn nice liquid paint into total blobs of gum. And if you do that in your airbrush, you've just lost your airbrush. And speaking of airbrushes, here's an airbrush. In the color calls here, it suggests airbrush only for one of the colors, and I think that's the outer surface hull. So that's certainly a sensible call there. But an airbrush is not absolutely necessary. You could just get yourself some silver spray paint like up there and just go with that. I will be using the airbrush because I do have it, and when you are looking for airbrushes, if you're in the market for one, get a low-end cheap brush itself. The brush and the compressor there were a combo deal for, I think it was $100. So that was definitely worth it at that point. The airbrush itself is about $25, and it was about $80 for the compressor, I guess. Maybe it was like $120 out the door. Things to note on the compressor is, first of all, they're fairly generic overall. This particular one will go from about 5 to 80 psi. However, while it has a pressure gauge here, it does not have a pressure regulator, so I cannot get anything more than a standard 17 psi out of this without actually going out and getting myself a regulator. One major thing to look for on any compressor is this glass jar here. Oop, let me get it in the camera there. So that is a water trap or a vapor trap. So if you don't have one of those, the water that is in the air naturally will get stuck inside the compressor housing and eventually rust it out from the insides, and you'll have a dead compressor soon enough. This airbrush in particular, let me get some more light on here. There are luxury models of airbrushes, and then there's standard little cheapo airbrushes. This is a $25 airbrush, as I mentioned. It's a single action, which means you push down and the paint comes out. The flow can be controlled from this dial here up front, so you get a really light amount or a heavy amount, and then this just is an on or off switch basically. Luxury models, those start getting into dual action, where not only is it on and off, but also a toggle switch forward and backwards to get thinner and thicker lines, and you get to control the density as well. If you're just starting off, go cheap, because if you accidentally ruin it, you definitely don't want to have destroyed a $100 or a $300 airbrush. 25 bucks, it's easy to break them, get a new one for a replacement rather, and you won't be quite so upset with yourself. Once you got a compressor, you're definitely all set. That's a really major component right there. A few extra paint bottles as well are always handy. Moving over here, we've got some generic spray paints. I like to have a basic black and white on hand, and I'll show you why when we get into the build. Auto primer is definitely one of the better choices you can make for primers overall. I used to just use the standard black and white here. These are $1 at Home Depot. But with once you go to auto primer, you're definitely not going to go back. That's probably $5 or $6 for a can. And you'll definitely want to have some clear gloss and matte clear as well. That'll be for the final finishing. And one of the most important things if you're going to be painting is to have yourself a paint box.